What's up, guys? This is Chris here, and today we're going to be talking about the guns I saw when I was in Europe. Now, this is not going to be a particularly in-depth video. We're just going to be talking about a lot of the guns that I saw and where I saw them, since you don't really think guns when you think Europe. And I went to Europe for the first time. Believe me, I'm not an expert, and this is not exactly an expert's opinion. I'm a firearms expert, but certainly not a European expert, as you could tell if you went on the trip with me. We made a lot of mistakes. They were hilarious, and some of them I would do again, some of them I wouldn't. That being said, we did see some interesting firearms, and I would say interesting is a good word because it's certainly a departure from what I would have normally seen in a lot of cases inside the United States. Now, before we do that, I do want to mention my Patreon supporters. Thank you guys very much. It's because of you guys we have guns and ammo and cool stuff on the channel, and I buy a lot of stuff that you couldn't even get in Europe, so I really appreciate you. And if you want to support the channel, that's the best way to do it. Just go to the link in the description below, and you can sign up. Also in that description is a link to a local shelter named Iowa. It's the YSS. They are a shelter that we try to support in every video, and their link for their donation page is in the description of this video, so I'd appreciate if you go down there and check that out as well. And finally, we want to thank their sponsor of this video, which is SDI. The SDI has been a long-time sponsor of the channel. They are a university that specializes in firearms education. If you want to get a degree in gunsmithing, drone technology, or anything else associated with firearms, please go down and check out the Sonoran Desert Institute. Now, the first country that we went to is England, and we actually had a pretty interesting experience in England. I've never been there. My wife had been, and one of the main reasons why we went to England is just an easy place to fly to, so we popped over to London. Now, before I even saw a firearm in London, we were robbed. My wife actually got robbed by a guy on a bike wearing a ski mask who rode by us in a rainstorm, literally the first time we were outside the hotel. At about 15 to 20 miles an hour, full speed, he grabbed her phone right out of her hand and kept riding. She was about 10 feet in front of me, so there was literally nothing I could do, which made me feel a little bit helpless, mostly angry, but honestly a little impressed because it was quite a grab. You could tell that guy had done that a whole bunch of times, and that's what we heard after we'd reported it, is that they basically do this all the time and it's professional. And honestly, from my personal experience in England, maybe English guys are gonna get mad at me here, but I sort of feel like your criminals aren't scared of you because you don't carry guns. I actually talked to a couple of different law enforcement officers, one in Ireland and one in England, and both of them had a very interesting perspective on why their police officers don't carry guns. One of them actually told me that they don't carry firearms because if the criminal is carrying the firearm and they see the cop is, they would shoot the cop. And I was like, well, yeah, shithead. Of course, if you had a gun, you could shoot back. And they were like, well, just let him go because it's just easier that way because bystanders won't get hit then. And I'm like, you just let the criminals go. That's why the crime happens. But, you know, I live in America. It's an American perspective, and I think I'm right. They obviously think they're right. Our country's better than theirs. We're right. But either way, it doesn't matter. That being said, not all English officers don't carry guns because when I was on a plane, a bunch of them came on. And when we were on a plane to go to Belfast, Ireland, an entire TAC team entered our plane and escorted 2 people off the plane, and all of them had AR-15s and Glocks, which I actually think is pretty interesting. Now, I think the AR-15s they had, I took a quick glimpse, but I think that they were LMT, maybe? I think that's what they were, but it was hard for me to see. Either way, I could see their pistols really well, and they were Generation 3 Glock 17s, which is gonna show up more and more on this video. Now, the LMT AR-15s, they look like 14.5s pinned. Maybe they were 16-inch, I'm not really sure, but they had standard quad rails, vert grips, and they had EOTechs on them. So stuff that you would see in like the War on Terror era. And the Gen 3 Glocks had iron sights with no lights on them whatsoever, and they were carried in classic holsters, like a level 3 retention of some kind. Standard police loadout just in Britain. That being said, their tactical teams had body armor. They look like what our police officers look like in, how do I want to say this? Residential areas. You go to somewhere like that that's not a major metropolis, like where they have older gear, older kit, things like that, that's what they look like. I imagine that's their elite police, which is kind of funny, but either way, they were definitely armed. So if you do something bad enough, they'll bring out the guns. After that, we moved on to Ireland, which there's not very many people in Ireland, and we had no issues in Ireland whatsoever. As a matter of fact, Ireland was the favorite country that I went to on this trip. It was actually my wife's favorite as well. Super beautiful, super nice, a lot more rural, and definitely would go back. That being said, we saw no firearms in there. I just wanted to give Ireland a shout out. From Ireland, we were off to Germany, and in Germany, we saw some pretty cool shit, I will admit. The first thing that happened when we got off the plane is we saw some armed officers that had USPs, and I thought that was pretty cool because a USP is not something you see very often inside the United States. A cool gun. I love the USP Expert. Now, the HK USP, if you don't know, is one of the most reliable handguns on the planet. It's a double single action pistol that you can get in either 4-inch or 5-inch. maybe a couple other variations as well. There's a lot of different models of it, but the German military in particular uses them a lot, and it makes sense that their law enforcement would have them. The double single action is really safe, it's easy to use, and double single action pistols are very, very popular in Europe. And I think the USP is certainly one of the best. It has a polymer frame on it. Some can take optics, some can't. None of the USPs in Germany had any optics or any lights or anything like that. So it was all just classic standard USP, and you could do worse for a handgun. Now they come in 9mm, 40, and a couple other calibers, but all the ones we saw look like 9s to me. Now the USPs were, I believe, the 4-inch variants, and they were carried in Kydex holsters, so a little bit of a step up from the British police already, and those were just the regular police. Later in Germany, we actually went to the train station in Frankfurt, and the Frankfurt police were full on not around. I mean, they had HK 416s, and that was very, very cool to see. And not just the ones I have in the US, they actually had the SBR versions, which are pretty cool. I thought that was one of the cooler guns I've ever seen cops walk around with. And honestly, just seeing 416s, them hanging out with them slung with a whole bunch of magazines. They also had USPs as well, and then they were carrying a bunch of pistol mags. I mean, they were ready to go. I mean, it was a big step up from Britain to Germany, in my opinion. And the interesting part is Germany had a lot of like junkies laying around, but I didn't see nearly as much crime in Germany as I saw in Britain, and this is just one user perspective. It's just me. Like, I didn't look up crime statistics before this, but where we were at in London, there was a shitload of crime all the time. Everybody talked about the crime. Everybody's worried about the crime. Every Uber driver I talked to warned me not to wear jewelry outside, warned me not to have my phone or my wallet near me. Germany, you saw none of that, and that's probably because they have 416s. One of the cops at the Frankfurt train station actually had a giant blonde beard, and he had a pink mohawk, and he was rocking a 416, and that is just not a guy I would fuck with. I would rob somebody else in some other place. Now, it wasn't the only cool gun we saw in Germany. We actually went up to Cologne, and we saw a couple of officers rocking pistols and then a couple of shotguns, which I didn't know what shotgun they were, to be honest with you. Maybe they were Berettas. I couldn't see from far away. But after we left there, we did go to the airport again, and we went to the airport. We saw another set of officers right after the security station that, again, had USPs, but this time, one of them had an MP5. And I was like, that's probably the only time I've ever seen somebody carrying around a submachine gun as an officer in my life. Like, I've heard of officers using submachine guns in special situations, maybe having them in the car, but he was just walking around slung with one. You see ARs all the time, which is arguably better, but in the United States, we don't really use subguns all that much, or at least haven't since the 90s and the early 2000s. Whereas seeing an MP5 all kitted out, just rocking at the airport with an EOTech on it was very, very cool to see. And that guy was not messing around either, I imagine, because, I mean, MP5 can lay down some hate, so that was pretty cool. Now, the MP5, if you don't know, is one of the best submachine guns, probably the best submachine gun ever made. Ever. The standard ones, the one I saw, had the traditional 8-inch barrel, had the standard handguard, but it did have a Picatinny rail up top with a EOTech. The Picatinny rail up top looked like an aftermarket thing. It sort of looked like a clamp-on thing, and then it had the classic foldy stock, so you can collapse them really, really nice. I imagine that's probably why he was using it in the airport, is because even though it's sort of a full-size subgun, you can collapse the stock, and you can make it very small and carry it around pretty easy. They have a 30-round mag, and they run a roller delayed system, making them very reliable, yet very, very soft shooting. And under full auto fire, they are very controllable and very easy to use. The MP5 has sort of been the pinnacle of the submachine gun for a very long time. Made out of stamped steel, super durable, and again, probably the best reputation of any subgun ever. I felt a lot more secure in Germany, to be honest with you. I know a lot of people don't like armed officers for some reason, but armed officers can solve crimes when the criminals are armed. So instead of my cops just throwing up their hands and wearing a little shitty little vest and a nice hat, I would prefer them to have AR-15s and take care of the problem. But I'm from the Midwest, and when I pay taxes, I expect them to do something. Now, I'm not saying the rest of Germany was all sunshine and rainbows. I mean, there was a lot of other logistical issues and things that we had there. It wasn't our favorite country either, but as far as feeling safe, I definitely felt safer in Cologne and Frankfurt than we did in a lot of areas in London. Then after that, we went to Italy. My wife's Italian. She always wanted to see Italy, so we popped down there. And I saw quite a few interesting guns, mostly guns that you would expect to see, however. So first, we saw a lot of police officers in Rome. We went to Rome first, and there was a lot more police officers in Rome than I saw anywhere else in Europe, and also very, very little crime. In Rome, they have a lot of pickpocketing and things like that, but not like run up and snatch your shit out of your hand. So I think that's probably because not only do they have a lot of cops centralized near the big areas, but they are also all armed as well. Many of them had Beretta 92s, which I expected. Maybe they're M9s, but I'm pretty sure they're 92s there. Now the M9, if you don't know, is a aluminum frame 9mm pistol with a 5-inch barrel. Now the older ones don't have a rail, some of the newer ones do. It has an open top design and a fixed barreled system, which is a little divisive for some people, but works extremely well and works very, very well when suppressed. The M9 not only was the military pistol in the United States from around 1982 till the late 2010s, but it also served in almost every law enforcement agency at one point or another. It is a very proven, time-tested design and a solid choice, in my opinion, for a sidearm even still today. Now they carry a 16-round magazine, which is more than enough firepower to deal with any threat you're going to find in Italy. M9 is the military designation for the United States. Maybe we sent a bunch of those over for them to use, but I think they probably just used 92 since Beretta's in Italy. And obviously you saw a lot of HK stuff in Germany. It does make sense to see a lot of Beretta stuff in Italy, and we certainly did. Not only did we see a ton of 92s, but we saw a ton of different variants as well. Some new, some old. Most of them were old, the ones that don't even have the rails on them or the optic cuts or anything like that. We saw no optics on any handguns the entire time we were in Europe. That must be an American thing. We like to hit stuff, but we are the frontier after all. We are the gun-toting crazy f***s of the world, and I really appreciate it. I'm so happy I'm back. That being said, we saw some decent iron sights. I would look into their holsters as I walk by and stuff like that, and some of the police officers seemed to be a lot nicer in Italy than in a lot of other places that we went where they were a little more standoffish. That being said, the rest of Italy is kind of rude, but the police officers were pretty nice. And some of them had night sights, some of them old M9, some of them have new ones. Some of them actually had some wood grips on them, which was pretty cool, I have to admit. Now, maybe the coolest gun I saw in Italy, or maybe even all of Europe, was actually the Beretta ARX 160, and I've never actually seen one of those in real life. I've seen a couple people do videos on them, and they seem pretty cool, and I don't know how good it is, but as far as cool factor goes, that was pretty cool. I know that the Italian military used those, at least in some small doses, because that's who I saw carrying the thing around. There was actually 2 girls that were defending the Vatican. The world's smallest country also has the world's smallest military, apparently, because it was just 2 chicks in a Jeep. But they both had ARX 160s, and again, I've never seen one of those in person, so I had to slide over a little bit and take a quick peek at it. They're running 30-round GI magazines. I also am pretty confident it runs 5.56, has a folding stock, and I think they're pretty modular. I think they can run quad rails and stuff like that, although this one just had the standard handguard on it. Very cool gun, and obviously probably pretty useful if it's reliable, and at least they were protecting the Vatican with something interesting. If you guys want me to, maybe I can get one of those and test it on the channel for you, because I've never actually shot one or even held one in person. So if there's any interest in that, let me know in the comment section below. That being said, the last gun that we saw in Europe before we took off, actually we had some debate and we had to walk back around and see the guy a couple of times. We were actually near the Swiss border in the top of Italy, and I actually originally thought the gun was a Steyr for a second, but my wife was absolutely right. The officer at the Italian train station was carrying a CZP-10C, and that's probably the first time I've ever seen a law enforcement officer carry a CZP-10. Now, obviously, you're not that far away from the Czech Republic, which is pretty cool, but the CZP-10 is one of my all-time favorite guns, and like I said, I've never seen a law enforcement officer carry one of those before. It actually has a pretty distinctive grip on it, so it's easy to see in the holster, and obviously you can see the length of the holster, so it's easy to distinguish whether it was the 4 or the 4.5. Now, again, just straight iron sights, classic CZP-10, but it's still a cool gun. I mean, in the United States, it's around $300, probably the best bang for your buck, honestly. Striker-fired polymer frame pistol, good trigger, really, really low bore axis, good sights. The P10 is a phenomenal gun, and I was happy to see one of those in the wild. 15-round 9mm, very, very cool gun. Arguably would have been my pick, besides maybe the Glock Gen 3s, but I probably would have went with the CZP-10 if I could have picked any sidearm in Europe. If I had to go with the Beretta M9, the USP, the P10, or a Glock, I'd probably go with the P10C. Honestly, I really like that gun. I shoot that gun a lot. If I had to go with any of the rifles, man, MP5's got the cool factor, but the 416's not f***ing around. The German guys knew what they were doing. Full body armor, 6-mag loadout, and a 416 can take care of pretty much anything that you need. So I would consider them probably have the best loadout I saw in Europe. Overall, though, certainly was an interesting cultural experience, and I appreciate having a little bit more firearm knowledge of the world than I did before. I know this is probably not the most informative video, just kind of a fun video that I wanted to post about my experiences. I'd never been to Europe before. My wife and I don't vacation very much, so it was a cool experience, and I had to work a little bit while I was on the road. Now, if you've seen any other cool firearms in Europe, or you have any countries that you think I should go to check out some guns, let me know in the comment section below. So if you like this video, please like and subscribe. Please help out your Oklahoma shelters, and remember to recycle. I'll check you later.